Welcome to ADCO Aviation. On the 8th video, we discussed the coping of your fuselage tubing. And guys, please don't let the fear of laying out the tube stop you. The main purpose of my videos has always been to encourage anyone that is on the fence to go ahead and start your very own aircraft build. So far, there has been nothing, and I mean nothing, that has been difficult. But most of all, I've had a blast each and every step of the way, and I encourage you to do the same. First off, it was great to meet some of y'all at Leonard's place. There was estimated over 150 people that showed up to his hangar. Maybe I'll see some of y'all again or meet new friends at Oshkosh this year, which brings me to my next point. Sorry for the delays. I'm going to try to get us caught up as soon as possible. But I was feverishly trying to get as much done as possible so that I could take inventory and place an order with Aircraft Spruce and have them bring that order to Oshkosh this year, saving me some shipping cost. Which, by the way, I've tried very hard to keep track of my inventory. So when I'm done, I should be able to give an updated, or should I say a detailed list of supplies that I used. On to my progress. I decided to TIG weld my fuselage. I'm not saying it must be done this way. My personal belief is that the gas method works and has for many years, and many aircraft have been safely flying that was built this way. I also believe if the fathers of aviation had a cheap 220 volt wire feed welder from Harbor Freight, they would have used it to get flying as well. I know this is a heated discussion to some, and I'll just say, do what you feel comfortable with, build it safe, and trust the design. All these triangles just simply work. Now the simplest way I could see was to heavily tack the bottom together. I flipped it over and heavily tacked the bottom side as well. Next, I marked the center line on each cross member. I used a chalk line without any chalk as a reference line. I cut 8 or so scrap 2x4s on an 8-degree angle for the top cut and the approximate length needed. You will slide these blocks forward and back to achieve the right height later. Now with the cockpit section secured with those 3/8 inch clamps that I discussed in the last video, I heated the 2 longerons just after station number 3 and lifted the tail to its correct height per the plans, with a rope going over a bar near the ceiling of my shop. Here you can see I'm using the chalk line again. I secured the fuselage bottom to the blocks, sliding them forward and backwards to keep that chalk line dead center of the tube. By the way, I had a Craig pocket hole jig, so I used it for convenience, but you could easily just toenail or use some angle brackets to keep those blocks from moving on you. The next thing I built was the backbone of my XL. Hindsight, I would have built it before I got the tail in position, but I was able to build it flat on the table under the raised tail. I marked out the backbone per plans, well sort of. See if you can spot where I screwed up. So here's an easy way to find your angles. Once you draw out the outline on your bench, take a piece of paper and trace that angle on the paper. Fold the paper in order to cut that angle in half, and voila, you have found half of that angle that you need for cutting your tube perfectly. Then weld them back together and your backbone is well on its way. Next, I made 3 equal long 2x4s to support the backbone level. And do you see my screw up now? While laying out the backbone on the bench, I forgot to subtract the height of the tail from the ground level. While I was going to add 1 inch to the top bar, I didn't need to add 26 some odd inches. No problem, I'll just modify and correct. The first backbone was just practice, right? Next, I added 2 more backbone supports for the cockpit area. Since I knew the table was level horizontally, I was able to use the level and get the placement from the markings off of the table. Just make sure you add half the thickness of your backbone tube. I secured the backbone with the clamps. Now we're ready for the fun stuff. Let's connect the dots. I started at station number 5 and worked towards the tail. This was the first of the vertical half-inch tubings. Always remember you're building triangles, point to point. Always imagine the center of the tubes converging on those points. Try not to paint yourself into a corner and build one triangle at a time. Same as last video, these layouts are the same. The interesting thing about building this way, as the joints get more difficult, you're ready to take it on because you've already had the experience needed. Just take it slow, one piece at a time. I used blue painter's tape as my clamps. On a couple of spots near the cockpit, I used a ratchet strap because I couldn't wrap the tape around the bottom tube. Just as I showed you before, mark and sand to the basic shape and use an angle grinder with a sanding disc to fine-tune the joint. Place in place and mark what needs to be removed to create a nice joint. Continue afterward and you'll finish your half-inch tubing sections. I then added the single vertical to the tail. I'll add the tail post later. Then I returned to station number 5 and moved forward with 5/8" tubings. Once the triangles are completed to station number 4, I repurposed the 2 most aft 2x4s that supported the backbone to build the brace for station number 3. Here we had to get creative. I knew the height was exactly the same as the backbone, so I added a crossbar to support the V-shaped tubes near station 3. But where do they go to? I had seen someone online use a welding rod, so I added a scrap 2x6 to my cross brace, cut a welding rod to length, the same as the width of my fuselage, and stapled it exactly where the center points of the tubes should converge. The way I did it, the bottom of the rod would be the bottom of the V-shaped side tubes. Looking through these pictures, it shows just how junky I keep my shop. Maybe someday I'll get around to cleaning things up. I did deviate from plan slightly. I added the half-inch diagonal brace behind the seat. Les does this on all his Eagles, and it makes sense. Remember, triangles. And when I wiggle the top bar, it doesn't move at all. Next is the dreaded seat back. It really wasn't bad. I know it's a highly visible item, but just like my welds, they'll look great from 1,000 foot in the air. I say that kind of tongue-in-cheek, but remember, you will be the one enjoying being in the air with an aircraft that you built, while those armchair builders are talking up their game. Don't overthink your design and never get in the air. I'll show you how I did the seat back and the rest of the fuselage tacking on the next video. Again, I'd like to stop and thank each of you for taking the time to watch my videos. I am humbled with each and every one of you, and those of you that have reached out to me privately with questions and encouragement. Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed this video and hopefully found some of the info helpful. And if you're on the fence about starting a Legal Eagle build, hopefully I've shown you just how easy it can be. If you like these videos, please like and subscribe to my YouTube, Odyssey, or Rumble channel. Thank you and God bless.